at the moment, as we look at the world, I'm running the risk of dipping into Jumbo for a sec, okay?
That's fine, it's fine.
We know that we're in trouble. Okay, so when I'm teaching courses, I teach a number of courses on different groups and areas. And when I'm teaching courses, I ask people, okay, raise your hands. Who thinks we're screwed? Who thinks we're really gone too far? And about 30-40% of the hands go up. And the others, God love them, they just don't know yet. So that's the kind of way. But so there's obviously there's a concern there. But one of the things that I want to point out, and I'm not dismissing the climate science and all of that kind of stuff, but I do want to point out that from a kind of a Newtonian physics perspective, the best available science doesn't take into account the many mysteries that exist in the world.
Yeah.
And so if you look at the temperature gradient between June and December in the Northern Hemisphere, you've got a sharp drop in temperature. Okay, so if you take that block of data and you say, okay, let's extrapolate. In 6 months' time, we're all going to freeze to death.
Right.
Okay, that's taking the best available science that's in front of us. And I'm not dismissing the capacity of the scientists to come up with really good ideas, really good data. But if you don't acknowledge some of the stuff that exists and that we know about, the framework for miracles, if you don't acknowledge that, the world is a really depressing place because we're all looking at freezing to death next June.
Right.
Which obviously doesn't happen. Yeah. And I'm not taking a Pollyannish view and saying it'll all be fine. There's no work to do. What I'm saying is there's hope. There is so much to play for. There is so much work to do. And the opportunity is there to jump in and to do that. And that exists. And we can grasp that now and run with it.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing, just looking at trajectories. And the other is, as we look at quantum physics as a source of our analogies, that also brings me a lot of hope. Because in Newtonian physics, whoever has the most force wins. That's the fundamental rule of Newtonian physics, essentially. With quantum physics, you can do something over here, and miracles unfold over here. And
nobody knows.
Who knows what's going on? There's quantum physicists who've said, I don't know what's going on. And anybody who does is obviously lying or doesn't understand it.
Yeah.
We really don't know. We're like babies in this. We're really grappling with something very new, but really exciting. And there are direct connections between the micro and the macro in this, but also to bring that into our language and to begin to bring the learnings from quantum physics. This is not new. Like, this has been around for 100 years, at least. So the Newtonian physics has been dead and buried. It was a long funeral, but we need to get rid of this idea that he or she who has the most force wins the game, because ultimately the economic machine that's rolling along can very firmly claim the accolade of having the most force. And as you try to affect change in the world, if you keep your eye on that machine, it's really depressing. But if you can take your eye off of that and back onto what you can do, what's right in front of you now? What can you do now? What miracles can you nurture? And not just in the world, not just in your garden, not just in your city or your little parcel of land, but what can you do in your mind? Because the human mind has this incredible capacity for dreaming. And what we dream tends to manifest. And by pulling that in, again, without being dreamy about it, well, I am being dreamy about it, but basically, how do we nurture the miracle? Do you know, in conventional medicine, if you get a terminal illness, conventional medicine says, right, okay, you're done. You're snookered. But miracles happen all the time. If you don't like miracles, that's okay. That's fine. If that doesn't fit with your cosmology, I'm happy with spontaneous remission. I don't mind what you call it.
Yeah.
I just want it to happen. Do you know? And
right.
So by bringing that in, there's the capacity to begin to step into, what Charles Eisenstein calls the more beautiful worlds that our hearts know is possible. And I think that we can just watch miracles coming into bloom all around us in so many ways.
That's so beautiful. That's such a great way to end. I would just completely echo that what you're saying is totally resonant with everything that we've been trying to put out on the podcast. And I would also just say, I think one thing that people don't realize is once you really start in the process of ecological restoration, it is really quick, the returns. And I think sometimes we think about ecological issues as being so big and so overwhelming. We just think like we can't even begin to start with this. But if you've ever done it, I mean, if you've ever really, I mean, that wetland was constructed, and I think it was over the course of like 5 years, and then all of a sudden it's like this Audubon site. Nature wants to recover. It's not actually even that complicated, and it doesn't even take that long. It just takes some intentionality and some care and some attention and some agency and some power, and some openness to miracle, I guess I would say.
Yeah. And it's so exciting to watch it. To watch those changes is phenomenal.